Welcome in, everybody. It's another Forest stream from your pal Anabeta. Good to see everybody. How you guys doing this evening? Hope you guys are doing well. I'm doing well. Finished up another day of work. Things are still going good, like food-wise and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not sick anymore. It's freaking awesome. So, yeah. Hope you guys are doing awesome. I'm Anabeta. I'm the brains of this operation. We discuss neuroscience and psychology topics every day on stream, and we also do some variety gaming. This evening we're going to talk about the 4 lobes of the brain, and we're also going to play some Slay the Spire after that. If you guys have heard of that game before, it's pretty dope. I like it. I'm getting back into it. Took a long break from it, but now we're back to it. Over here is little fat boy hanging out on the cuddle throne, doing his thing. Putting out them positive vibes, you know, as he is wont to do. So, yeah. Hopefully people start trickling in here in a minute. I don't really want to get the teaching portion started too quickly here. I'd like to wait till people are here so that we can, you know, have an audience to teach to. Just saying. I'll give them a couple minutes. Yeah. So, scientific news. I didn't really hear anything else new since yesterday besides, you know, the whole, the babies that were born in China having their genes edited by CRISPR. That's, pretty crazy. Considering we should have been years away from even trying to do anything like that. Pretty incredible that a scientist decided to just go ahead and do that experiment anyways, and just edit the genes of two live children. Yeah, I think we were not anywhere close to ready to do that yet. I think we needed years more research to see just the long-term effects of, or potential long-term effects of gene editing in people. We wouldn't have seen the long-term effects of that without actually doing that in vitro, or that, yeah, in vitro gene editing and watching a child grow up after that. And I guess we're doing that now. I think there should have been a lot more tests done. I think it should have been done in maybe a bit more of a controlled manner, and maybe edited genes that were a bit less important. They edited something in the immune system, which is pretty crazy. But how else do we become X-Men, says Kavas? I know, right? How else are we gonna get there? How else are we gonna get there if we don't start, just take that leap, you know? Start playing God right now. Just do it. Do it. How else will I have designer babies? I'm just saying. I don't want to wait for the next generation. I want them now. Actually, I don't really want them at all, honestly. Not really at all. How you doing, Kavas? Hope you're doing well, man. Hope you're doing well. I assume you're heading home from work for the day, so that's good. Glad to hear your dad is doing decent in the hospital and they got a handle on what's going on there, so it's glad for that update today. Yeah, how are you otherwise, man? How was your hump day? Doing alright heading home, feeding the kitties, and then see how your dad's doing? Yeah, sounds good, man. I know you had kitties. I think I didn't know that. I think for some reason I had not heard that before. Now I want to know more. Now I gotta know more about kitties, dude. Tell me all about them. Yeah, them babies. Crazy, man. I hope that in the video where they announced that they did this experiment and on the 2 babies that were born, and described the family, that they didn't actually use real names. I'm assuming they didn't and they're just made up names, but I really hope that they didn't, because those kids are going to have a really hard time having any sort of privacy in the future. Just saying, if they actually use their real names in this video and they're out there for the world to see. Same with the parents. I mean, if they use the parents' real names, which, I mean, given that the thing was, or this experiment was done in China, and the parents' names were like Grace and Mark, I'm inclined to believe that that's probably not their real names. It could be. It totally could be. But I don't think so. I don't think so. Kava said, well, they're not exactly our kitties. They're ferals, but Mom takes care of them. They keep adding on as we go. Yeah, that's what happens to kitties. Well, it's good that you're putting out some food for them so they can, you know, not starve and stuff like that. That's good of you, man. Still got them neighborhood kitty friends. Anyways, as people start trickling in here, let's go ahead and do this. Yeah, I'm not sure. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this started. Let's do it. See people starting to trickle in, that's fine. Some bots, some real people. Let's go ahead and get this started. Talk about the brain a bit. Hopefully people come in quick, they don't miss too much of this. Just saying. Worked hard to put it together, so. Here we go. Let's freaking do it. Let's actually do it. There we go. There we go. So, we got the lobes. We got the brain. Right here. We're going to talk about what the 4 lobes of our brain do, the 4 general areas, as you can see here. There's the frontal lobe, there's the parietal lobe, there's the temporal lobe, and there's the occipital lobe. Wow. The captioner actually picks that up. I don't believe that. I thought for sure parietal and occipital would have gotten messed up in there real bad, but nope. We're good. Awesome. Anyways, random letters, what's up, man? You liked the brain picture you left on Discord better? Oh, that was you. I was wondering, like, who that was. I liked that better, too, but not as good for teaching this, because you want to see the distinct lobes of the brain. So, but I loved that, too. I'm glad that somebody else put up some brain art, dude. I freaking loved that. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that earlier. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming by. Always a pleasure to see you. Let's jump in here. So like I said, we had the 4 lobes of the brain: frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. And we can tell kind of, I mean, looking at the brain, you wouldn't see these four regions very easily unless you know what to look for. The reason that these areas are highlighted in red here, they aren't actually highlighted in red on your brain. They aren't like major blood vessels right here or anything like that, but these are highlighted to denote general areas where there is a like kind of demarcations in most people's brain. Here's a big one you always see. This is called the lateral fissure. Separates the temporal lobe from the frontal lobe. We always see that as this like the little hook part that sits off the side of your brain. We always see this part. We've always seen this. Twisted Deeds, what's up, man? How you doing? Welcome back. Good to see you. Captain Ethanol, what's up, man? Good to see you. See, Kava started that quest. Oh, actually, Captain Ethanol started that quest. Exclamation point quest to start that quest. Astrazia, science class every day. Every day lately. I always do a little bit of science teaching. It was a little bit more informal before, but today, more formal. Ethanol talking about the question of the day, what the 4 lobes do for us, says the only thing he remembers is the occipital lobe be controlling your seeing. It does. Very, very simply put, that's what it does, yes. Hey, random letters, found that kitty. You know the drill, man. You found one last night, too. You got that good kitty luck lately. Anybody in chat want to join that quest for Little Fat Boy's treat? Oh, you did too, Ethanol. I didn't see that. You also know the drill. Throw the name and type your kitty in chat. Anybody else that wants to search for a kitty? Exclamation point search. You can find your own kitty for us to add to the kitty club. Anybody else that wants to join? Well, the quest is over, so I guess you can't do that anymore. But in the future, exclamation point quest to join those quests. Twisted Deeds said, any reason our brains aren't smooth like other organs? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a great reason. Yep. Ethanol said something about surface area. Yes. The reason we have these, I was going to go over this later, but I'll do it now. The raised parts of this. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate you. The raised parts of this. These are called gyri, or one would be called a gyrus. So we'll be talking about different gyri as we talk about this, but those raised parts are called gyri. The valleys or the sunken parts here, those are called sulci, or sulci, or one of them is called a sulcus. The reason that we have those is, yes, it's increased surface area. So I was talking about this last night. Do I have that? No, I don't have that. But if you look at a cross section of a brain, you'll see on the outsides there's gray matter. There's all gray matter on the outside of a brain, on what's called the cortex, right? This we're looking at right now. This is called the cerebral cortex. The outside of this is all made up of gray matter. So all along these gyri, all along the inside of the sulci, all gray matter. And then further deeper into the brain, there's the white matter, which, as we talked about yesterday, that's all of the axons coming off of the gray matter, off of the neuron cell bodies, and making the connections inside the brain and then moving out to our body as well, right? So the reason why our brain isn't smooth. If it was smooth, yeah, we would have a lot of neuron cell bodies. We'd have a lot of neuronal somas and stuff like that on the outside of our brain, sure. But if we crinkle up the brain like this, right, then it ends up looking more like, or we end up having a lot more neuron cell bodies and a lot more neurons in general in this area than we would if it was a flat thing, right? You can kind of think about it like if I have this piece of paper. Right, here it is. This has a surface area, right? But if I do this, that's got the same surface area. It does. If we did the geometry on it, this would have about the same surface area, but it's way smaller now, right? So if you wanted to or have something all around the outside of this, you could fit a lot more in the same in a lot smaller area. So that's why it is. And that is why it is. And I'm going to continue in just a moment with the lecture, but first, I see Fatboy gets a treat because you guys took out Rancho Tommy Chong, which means this little Fatboy gets a treat. Y'all get some kitty cam. Thank you guys for requesting yet again for Fatboy's Fat Belly Fun, dedicated to keeping him the fattest kitty on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. Y'all love it. It's a win-win-win. Okay, boy. And I also see that Ethanol named his kitty and a Random Letters named the kitty, so since there are no mods here, let me go ahead and add them kitties. Ethanol wants a calico cage fighting kitty named Rancho Tommy Chong. Alright. I'll also give these kits some love after the abuse they take for us. I love it. I love it, man. That is a good one. Ethanol, how you doing today, man? Hope you're doing better. Hope you're doing better. Yesterday we were having a rough time of it, it sounds like. Boom. 481. Here comes the 482nd one. That would be a Random Letters kitty. An old gray cat with a beard and floppy wizard hat named Archimedes. Archimedes? I'm gonna go with Archimedes. That's what you wrote. A cat with a beard, floppy wizard hat named Archimedes. Good one. Like you guys work together on that one. Boom. Archimedes, gotcha, man. It's going in now. $482 kitties. Oh my gosh. Hey, here's an oldie but a goodie. Good old bronze cat named Bronze Cat. Haven't seen that one for a while. A little dumpy, but you're coming up. Good, man. Drink to kill your ills tonight? I hear you, dog. I hear you. Alright. Got a lot of stuff to take care of there for a second. I love those questions. Thank you for that question, Twisted Deeds. I love that. I love that you guys ask questions and that I might forget to explain. I did mean to explain that tonight, but I might have forgotten, and I'm glad that you said something about that. Yeah, that's the reason why brains aren't smooth. They are indeed flat, or they are indeed crumpled up, it looks like. Increased surface area, more neurons on our brain and per volume than there would be otherwise. That's what it is. That's it, and that's all. Anyways, let's jump back into this. So, as I was saying, we got the 4 lobes: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe, right? And this, not famous, but this very distinct demarcation here that separates the frontal lobe from the temporal lobe is called the lateral fissure. You always look for that. You can see that in brains. Anytime you look at this, a side view of a brain like this, you can always see that. Temporal lobe always starts here. Frontal lobe's always up here. Always. Random Letters says, are the individual lobes actually colored like that? No. I thought our brains used Verdana for their font too. Actually, these Comic Sans, this is an artist rendition, so it's different. Yeah. I mean, as far as I've heard, I mean, most of the studies I've read said that our brains are labeled with Comic Sans. So, I mean, I think... Now, I've only seen one other study that said that they weren't, and it was Arial instead, and I was like, no one uses Arial. That's stupid. It's clearly Comic Sans. So... Ethanol said, I remember Broca's area being responsible for speech, the corpus callosum responsible for connecting the 2 hemispheres of the dome, the occipital lobe being responsible for the eyeballum. That's all you can remember. Well, you are correct on all accounts, sir. That is true. Yeah, Broca's area, which is right about here, is responsible for production of speech, for sure. People with damage to that, or aphasia called Broca's aphasia, actually have trouble saying anything. We talked about this before when we had our chat about strokes and my experience in working with patients that have strokes. As a speech therapist, did I work with a patient that had Broca's aphasia? No, I didn't, but I saw patients that have Broca's aphasia. They can understand everything you're saying just fine, but they can't tell you anything they want to say. So, but yeah, if you have a damage to this area, you get Broca's aphasia, and you can no longer speak fluently like you used to be able to do. If at all, you might be able to get 1 or 2 words out about what you mean to say, but for the most part, it's very difficult to communicate with speech after that. Because someone with Broca's aphasia speak via ASL, I don't believe it works like that. No, because it's not so much that they can't use their mouth anymore to speak. It's more that them going to say the thing they want to say, like they can't think of what they want to say anymore, right? They can't make the association between that. I don't think so, but it could be. I don't think so though, because if that was the case, we would be teaching everybody with Broca's aphasia ASL and we're good to go. So I don't think that that's it. ASL is just another type of language, so. And also, what's up, Tax Dude? Good to see you, man. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for always being here, dude. So yeah, a lateral fissure separates the temporal lobe from the frontal lobe. And this other not famous, but distinctive demarcation here called the central sulcus separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. We can always see these in brains. Always, always, always. And then back here, a lot of the stuff I've seen before says the occipital lobe is kind of arbitrary where the demarcation is. There isn't a easy way to see, but there is usually what's called a preoccipital notch. There's a little tiny sulcus right here that lets you know that the occipital lobe starts here and temporal lobe starts there, and you just kind of make an imaginary line up here. This I haven't actually seen on brains before, the parietal occipital sulcus. I haven't seen that. There's a lot of sulci up here. If you look at a brain, so it'd be hard to tell where this one actually is. And this is kind of just an imaginary line that we draw here. So, Random Letter says, I've always wanted to experience synesthesia. Me too. Do you have any recommendations for how to do it? Mushrooms, maybe? Yeah, there's no way to like make your brain experience that, because it's not so much a altered state of mind as it is just a rewiring of your brain, kind of a crossing of sensory information. I think I haven't done a lot of research on what people with synesthesia's brains look like, but it seems like it would be a disorder of the thalamus, which is a not the thalamus, thalamus. Thank you, that's the one, thalamus. It's just not picking up the word thalamus. There we go. That's a structure in our midbrain, which kind of all the sensory information coming in from our body, taste, touch, all that stuff, goes to the thalamus first, and then it's directed out to the correct cortex for processing further after that. So since your senses are being crossed with synesthesia, you'll taste sounds and stuff like that. I think that's where the center of that disorder lies, somewhere in the thalamus, but I could be wrong about that. Hey Kyle, what's up, man? Good to see you, dude. Random Letter said, I've heard LSD can cause it. It might, but it would be a hallucination at best and probably not true synesthesia. Couldn't say. Retacular, oh my god, what's up, dude? How the hell are you? It's been way too long, my friend. Dude, what's up, dude? Oh my gosh, how have you been? Hope you're doing well, dude. I know, right, Kyle? It's so good to see you, bud. Hell yeah. Hope you're doing all right, dude. I'm so glad to see you, man. Yeah, tell me all about all the good stuff that's been going on, man. Catch up with us, please. I would love to hear from you. But while that's going on. Oop, did Master Player 301 say something? What's up? Did he use that thing that you put an emote in chat? Yeah, that's it. Master Player 301, what's up? Thank you, Kyle, for saying hi to him, because I would not have known he said anything, because I can't see that in my chat bot. Master Player, what are you doing? How you doing, man? Thanks for coming by. Thanks for that follow. Appreciate you. Hope you're ready to learn about the brain with us. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, synesthesia. Whoa! Kyle gifting that sub to Redtacular. Hell yeah, dude. Welcome back to the neural net. It's not the freaking... I'm changing that right now. It is no longer the top cats. I forgot to change that last night and I meant to. I'm changing it right now. I don't know if it's actually going to work for this stream, but I'm doing it. Where are we at? There it is. Sorry guys, one moment, just changing these alerts. That is not how that should look. We need to change the resub too. Where the heck is it? There it is. Sorry about that, everybody. There we go. Now we good. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I really didn't want to forget to do that again. Doing great, can't stay long though. That's okay, Master Player. That is okay, man. You okay, Redtacular? I'm really glad to hear that, man. We were kind of worried about you for a while, man. I'm glad that you're okay. Still alive is a positive. You got a lull there, which says positive spirits, dude. I'm glad to hear you're doing okay, man. I'm glad to see you again, man. So we missed you. Hasn't quite been the same, man. It is an appropriate quote. A good portion of our quotes are still from Red. I was gonna say. Random Letters asks, did I check out the video on that brain picture? Looks so much better with the camera moving around it. What? What are we talking about? Right, Kyle? I wish Ninja and Nina were here to see him too. I'm sure this won't be the last time we see them. Yeet! There we go. Yeah, what were we talking about? Random Letters? I know what you mean. There's another one. I swear to God we have other quotes besides ones from Red. I'm just saying. Missed y'all too, had to focus. Yeah, no problem, dude. Totally okay. Totally get you, man. Absolutely, I'm glad. We're just glad you're okay. We're glad to see you again. We missed you. So happy to see you. So happy to see you back, man. Love it. I'm not crying. You're crying. It's fine. Guys, Archie posted on Discord. Oh, got it. No, I didn't have a chance to watch the video. Random Letters. I was at work, so I couldn't do that. But I will watch it after stream if I remember to. Speaking of videos, guys, I gotta say we got new alerts coming. The new I've seen the new follower and the new sub alerts. They are animated and ooh, they look so freaking sexy. I can't even wait. They look so good. Nice and brain themed, like what I'm going for here. It's just, oh my god, it's gonna be so sick. The neural net is never going to look better than with these freaking alerts. I'm just saying, it's gonna be baller. I can't wait to show them to you guys when they're done. When you want to minimize the window but close it instead, yeah, Kyle, I know it sucks. All right, let's get back to it. So we were talking about synesthesia. Yeah, the thalamus. I think that's where that happens. Don't know what kind of things you could do to possibly experience synesthesia. People probably say that drugs or LSD might do that for you, or mushrooms. I can neither confirm nor deny that. I also cannot condone taking anything like that. I don't know, man. I think it's something you gotta be born with, honestly. Anyways, so 4 lobes. Here's the demarcations that, on actual brains that do separate those kind of things. I would love to show you a real brain, but I couldn't find a good picture that is somewhat not trademarked that I could show you here. Speaking of trademark, this brain was made by Sebastian23. It's just up on Wikipedia though, so it's kind of free for us to all use. You can see the web address right there if you want to go check it out, but it's there. So yeah, these are the 4 lobes. We talked about sulci and gyri. The gyri are these parts that stick up. The sulci are the parts that are depressed, the valleys, right? Where's the part that makes lewd thoughts? I'm thinking right up here in the frontal lobes, where all of our thoughts come from, I would guess. I think it's up here in the frontal lobe near the anime gyrus, which is right here. And also, yeah, the anime and hentai gyrus right here. This is where lewd thoughts come from. That's I actually read a study on that one. I can't find it right now, but I can put it in the Discord later or something like that. Anyways, the frontal lobe. This is the, as you can see, the by far the freaking largest part of our brain, right here. The frontal lobes, and being as large as they are, that is one of the things that kind of sets us apart from other animals, what makes us human, right? So sweet, friend, glad to catch our stream, Professor Melko. I'm glad you caught our stream too. Guys, Professor Melko is a chemistry streamer as far as I can tell. I'm guessing since he has prof in his name, he's an actual professor. Looks the part as well, as I've seen on Twitter and on his stream very briefly. But he's another edu streamer in the Knowledge Fellowship, which you can check out more of down below in the panels down below. So yeah, feel free to go check him out sometime. I haven't had a chance to check out one of his streams just yet, but check him on out. So he was talking about chemical reactions and such the other day on his last stream when I was able to drop by for just a second before my own stream. Indeed, cool. I'm glad I'm correct on all accounts. If y'all into chemistry and want to know more about that, and you don't want to go to college, you want to just like get a little bit of knowledge and not have to go to class and stuff like that, go check out Professor Melko, you know? Who I'm sure would suggest you go to college. Glasses and bookcase in the background means you're super official. Oh, obviously. Yeah, totally. It's like I have my anime picture in the background. I'm super official. We're good. And a cat? I mean, geez. You can't get more official than this, dude. But welcome in. Good to see you, man. Thanks for dropping by. Where was I? The frontal lobes. Yes. This is the part, like I was saying, that kind of makes us human, right? This is the part that sets us apart from other animals. One anime poster equals certified otaku. It does. Even if it was a gift. I mean, I got gifted this. I got gifted the gift of otaku. I mean, here I am. I just got to live this life now, you know? Yeah, this is what sets us apart from, one of the things that sets us apart from animals. Cognitively, for sure, this is what sets us apart from animals. One of the things. Another thing I'll talk about in a second. But the fact that our frontal lobes are so disproportionately large compared to other mammals and other animals that have cortex, because not all animals have cortex, they just have more midbrain and deep brain structures, more basic brains as it were. Yeah, this is, but the fact that this is disproportionately large in us is what gives us a lot of our cognitive abilities, our ability to think things through, our ability to relate to one another very deeply, our language abilities, because we talked about Broca's area resides in the frontal lobes. The size of this is one of the things that makes us human and sets us apart from animals. Another thing that does, if you are a member of the Discord, which, hey, speaking of which, thank you, Kyle, for the Discord link. There it is. Feel free to join us over in the Discord. But one thing I posted in the science section, there was a new study about a month ago that came out that compared human neurons, which we learned about neurons yesterday, and mouse neurons, and found that there's actually like distinct differences between physiology and anatomy of human and rat neurons. They're actually like down to the neuron we're actually different there as well. It's not just brain size and structure, but actually at a neuronal level, our neurons function and are anatomically different than a rat's neurons. Not to say that we shouldn't compare ourselves with rats anymore in experiments and stuff like that. The difference isn't that gross, but it still sets us apart from them at a very, very basic level. Right. Quest time for whoever's ready! Exclamation point quest to get this little fat guy a treat. He's waiting. He's freaking waiting. Ethanol's on it, Red's on it, Kyle's on it. Hell yeah. Yeah, so the frontal lobe. Important part of us. What makes us human? A very important part. So it's responsible for a lot of things. It really is. I want to switch to another view and talk about the four kind of basic sections of what's called the prefrontal cortex. This whole thing is called the frontal lobe or the frontal cortex. But the very front of it here, this is especially what makes us human. This is the latest evolving part of us, as far as I understand. I could be wrong about that. But this is the latest developing part of us, and what gives us our higher thinking abilities. It's an area called the prefrontal cortex. So I'm going to switch to this view. This picture was made, or is from a game, I guess, called anatomography. Geez, that was hard to say. But this is a game, or just basically a way to visualize anatomy to help people learn. And again, it's on Wikipedia. Should be fine if we use this. Here's the, that's who made it. Here's the web address if you want to go check it out. Credit to them for this picture. And I see you guys took out Rancho Tommy Chong, which means this little fat boy gets a treat. You guys get some kitty cam. I do have a lab coat on the back of my chair. I guess that gives me some cred. Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest kitty on Twitch. Oops, I forgot the captions were off there. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. Y'all love it. It's a win-win-win. Oh, good boy. Professor Melko asked, do many other species have prefrontal cortices? I can't say if many do. I know apes do, and probably certain other monkeys and stuff like that. But I'm not sure how many other animals have. They'll have cortexes, but maybe not prefrontal cortexes like we do. I can't say that actually. I don't know. I haven't spent time learning about the brains of many other mammals and other sea life and stuff like that, because certain larger sea life like whales and dolphins and stuff like that could certainly have them. It wouldn't surprise me if a octopus had one too, octopi or squid. I actually I don't know much about their brains, if they even have very complex nervous systems and brains. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think many do. And if they do, they're certainly, like I said, they're certainly not as evolved as ours are. So, nice tuxedo kitty. He is indeed. Oh wait, what am I doing? We had a resub. Kyle gifted that sub. Sorry about that, Kyle. Kyle gifted our sub, so Session Long Kitty Cam is brought to you by our friend Kyle and our friend Red. We got brains. Apes have brains. Smell conspiracy. I mean, right. The neuronal conspiracy. Red's onto him. Getting that kitty cam. Yep, I forgot about that, Kyle. Feel free to remind me next time, man. It is not too much. Oh my gosh. Bats are killing me, dude. Killing me. Anyways, let's get on this. It's okay you forgot to? Yeah, me too. My bad. I forgot. So, this is looking at the brain from the front of us. If we were looking at a person like right in their face and their skull suddenly exploded off of them and their brain was left intact, we would see this. And probably some other stuff, but this is the important part. So, this area in red here highlighted, this is the prefrontal cortex. Or rather, this is the frontal lobes. But the prefrontal cortex would be kind of this front bit right here and also underneath. So right about here. I wish that I could draw on this, but I can't. So here is the prefrontal cortex. There's 4 different sections of it, right? If we divide this in half this way, we would get a top and bottom section, or what's called the dorsal and the ventral sections. We're going to go over these anatomy terms more tomorrow. And we're also, if we divided each of these sides of the cortex, because like everything in the brain, the sides are paired. If we divided, so we divided top and bottom, we have dorsal and ventral. If we divided each side in half, we would have the medial portions and the lateral portions as well, right? So let's say, for instance, we draw this or we cut this portion in half. Let's just talk about one side of the brain. So we cut this in fourths like that, right? If we were looking at this portion after that, we'd be looking at the medial dorsal or dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, which does for us, this gives us our sense of self and our sense of other people. Anybody know what that term is? That term that we talk about that gives us our sense of ourself and other people and distinguishes our thoughts from other people's thoughts and things like that. Anybody know the term for that? They talk about it in autism a lot. It's something that's often seen as impaired in people with autism. Anybody know what that's called? Give you guys about 10 seconds. That's right. It's called theory of mind. Theory of mind is what gives us our sense of our own thoughts, our own brain. Well, let's just realize though, like what we're thinking is ours alone, and what other people have other thoughts. They have their own minds, right? People with autism often have difficult times distinguishing. I can't say how they think of it, but they often have difficult times with tasks that measure theory of mind, or say like what they're thinking about, what other people might be thinking about. They have difficulty like looking at a situation and realizing what other people might be feeling in a situation, right? Red is going to say potato chip. Close. That was very, I would have given you credit for that one. I mean, that's very close. Potato chip theory of mind. I mean, it's my favorite brand of potato chips. But yeah, people with autism often have that ability impaired. It's yeah, it's more difficult for them to kind of put themselves in other people's shoes and think about things from their perspective. Perspective taking is a very difficult thing. So this area, the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, helps us do that, right? Well, let's see. If we were to go over to this side and look at the dorsolateral, did I say I said dorsomedial here, right? I meant dorsomedial. If we go over to this side, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. What's up, Gemini? Good to see you, man. Love those emojis, dude. That's good. But if we look at the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex here on this side and also here on this side, let's see, that does mainly working memory. You guys know what working memory is? That's basically holding information in your mind very short term. So if you back in the day where you had to remember phone numbers to go from the to like maybe go from a phone book over to the phone on the wall or something like that, they're 7 digits long, and they're like that for a reason, because most people can remember 5 to 7 bits of information on average, like either a chain of letters, chain of numbers, different words, things like that, before they start losing them, right? Our working memory is very small. But the working memory basically is what we're focusing on at any one point in time. It's usually very small bits of information. After that, it's dumped and you'll forget it. And unless you do more with it, if you work with that information more, and once you go to sleep, things that were in short-term memory will go to a long-term memory if your brain deems that they are important and salient enough, right? Can never remember your own phone never read? Yeah, because we don't have to think about it anymore, right? It's just in our phone. We just don't recall that stuff anymore. But I remember when I was growing up, when I was still young and I had my first phone and stuff like that, I remembered my phone number because I always had to tell other people. We couldn't just text it to each other. It was different. Working memory equals the L1 and L2 cache? Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't know enough about computers to say that, but I will take your word for that. Yeah, that could be. I always thought of working memory as RAM, which L1 and L2 cache might be part of RAM too, I don't know. But usually, like, working memory has been likened to RAM in a computer, and long-term memory has been likened to disk space, or the hard disk in a computer. That was a comparison that I learned a long time ago. I don't know if there's been a better comparison to come out since then, but I don't like this song. I'm sorry, 1 second. This is not doing it for me. There, that's better. Jeez. But that is something, yeah, that's a decent comparison to kind of get the points of short-term memory versus long-term memory, right? So yeah, usually, like, if you're working with a program in short-term memory, or if you have a computer program open, it's in RAM and you're working with it and all that, but when you shut that program down, it's out of working memory and it's gone. It goes back to long-term storage and it's there if you need it again, right? Your brain kind of works the same way. If you're thinking about something, it's in your working memory, and then when you stop thinking about it, back to long-term memory, or it's forgotten. Calvin said, man, I look forward to when we get 16-bit brains instead of this 8-bit garbage. I know, right? Or maybe 32-bit brains. Oh my gosh, imagine the colors. Amazing. Gemini says L1 and L2 cache is memory that's directly on the chip die for much faster access than going all the way to RAM. Okay. I mean, yeah, like I said, that could be a very good way to think about it. I don't know. Computer analogies only go so far. Totally. Like the RAM and the hard disk thing only goes so far. Random letter said thank you. Oh, for yeah, got it. Yes, good description. Yep. That makes sense then. Yeah, it's right there. Or cache memory. Cache memory, I believe, is just short-term memory as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, anyways, that's where our working memory, some of our working memory ability is right here. This is what would control it, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, right? It did not read, no. It was not working at all, no. So working memory and also selective attention, right? Us being able to direct our attention to things. That is also something that is within these areas here, for the most part, as far as I understand. So selective attention is basically being able to focus on what you want to focus on, and blocking out distractors. There is a disorder that people have where this is very difficult. Anybody know it? Gemini said, I don't know. I watched a lot of science videos in school that were set to 80s glam rock. I bet you did. Does that show weird science? ADD, or actually as it's known nowadays, ADHD? Yes, totally, Gemini. That's the one. Yep. So yeah, people with ADHD have difficulty with selective attention. They have a difficult time blocking out distractors. Not so much that they can't focus on things. They can in fact what's called hyper focus on things, where like they focus like really intensely on something and can't stop paying attention to it, but they have difficulty directing their attention to where it should be, right? So a lot of distractors around can cause them to focus on those things instead. They'll get stuck on one topic for sometimes. It's difficult. It's difficult. Hello guys, how you doing, man? Pretty cool closed captions in the bottom right. It is, right? I recently got those set up. I meant to do so a long time ago. A lot of members of the Yam fam down below use those captions as well. And yeah. Isn't the lobe part of the brain that fires lasers? I wish. The laser lobe, that comes from the laser gyri, actually. They're right here and right here. Right behind your eyes. Many people think that when Superman fires lasers out of his eyes, they're coming from his eyes, but actually they start in his brain right here. And he has special structures that funnel them down into his eyes to exit his eyes. I'm just saying, that's how that works. So the laser gyri are down here on the what would be called the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex down here. So we talked about the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex that has the theory of mind. We talked about the dorsolateral prefrontal cortices, which is going to have our selective attention and working memory. Down here in the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, we have not only the laser gyri. Drugs on the lobe, crazy time. Indeed, yeah, that's what it equals. So the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex here and here is where we get a lot of control and inhibition, right? Where a lot of things that we do aren't just us like saying, okay, I'm going to do this thing now. A lot of it is like, I want to do a lot of things, but I'm going to inhibit all these other things I want to do and just do this one thing instead. And not so much on a conscious level where like, I really want to punch this person, but I'm not going to. That part of the brain helps us control that too, but also more like I could do a variety of things right now, but I'm going to focus on doing this one thing instead, you know, right? So this is the part of the brain that helps us do that. It helps us basically choose our actions wisely and control ourselves and inhibit actions we shouldn't do or really don't want to do. Is the brain the only thing that has named itself? I believe so. I believe it is, Gemini. That's a interesting philosophical question there. I can't think of anything else that would have named itself, yeah. Besides, maybe they've developed some sort of AI that named itself. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Technically, the universe named itself too? Possibly. Did the universe name itself, or did we give it that name? I don't think the ant named itself. I don't think so either, no. Delicious, Ethanol. Hope you enjoy it, man. Guys, I gotta tell you about, so Ethanol mentioned pizza. I got a little kind of disappointing story. Some of you guys know I've been pretty sick these last couple of weeks. I haven't been able to eat and stuff like that very comfortably. It's caused a lot of pain and exhaustion and stuff like that. So it's why I was on the streaming hiatus. But I'm back to eating solid foods again. I'm back to 100%. And one of the things that I celebrated with is while I was on this break from eating and stuff like that, I went to go, I was at the store buying juices and liquids and stuff like that to consume instead. And I was walking in the freezer aisle and I saw these like totally like vegan, like meatless pizzas. And I was like, oh my God, I want to try one of these it looks super good. I want to try one of these when I'm done fasting and stuff like that. So last night after stream, I treated myself. I went out and I bought one. Came back, popped it in the oven, was so excited. And then when it got done and I started eating and stuff like that, and it was terrible. It was not good at all. It was just, the crust was like cardboard, because it was also gluten-free, which I don't care about at all. I will have wheat, and I'm fine with that. So it was a gluten-free crust, had Diet cheese, vegetables, stuff like that. It had Beyond Meat, if you guys have heard of that. It's got pea protein meat in it, or on it. And it was okay. It was technically food, but it left a lot to be desired. It was not, it wasn't worth the wait. That was no way for me to celebrate, unfortunately. Sometimes the captions are hilarious. Oh, I'm sure the captions are very hilarious. Yeah, they don't always pick up what I'm saying. I didn't like the word thalamus earlier. It says Phalamos every time. Before we called the universe, it was called named Carl. I didn't know that. Yeah. Good to know, Ethan. Or good to know. We're a part of the universe with the power to observe itself, depending on how you look at things. Man, that's another philosophical question. I think we name the universe. I'm just saying. I think so. I don't think the universe has the ability to name itself, in my opinion. Want a small victory today, says Ethanol. You build computers at work, alright. One of the things that's required is decent cable management. Unfortunately, up till today, all the zip ties we have been able to use were these teeny tiny things that had to daisy chain together to do anything. Been railing against this for almost 2 months now. Your boss informed me today. It finally annoyed him enough to order larger zip ties. Hell yeah, Ethanol, dude. That perseverance, dude. Stick with it. That's dope, man. Awesome. That's going to make your work life a lot better, I hope. Actually quite accurate overall. Oh yeah, they are. Yeah, they are for the most part. But some words they just don't know what to do with. And sometimes I imagine I speak too quickly for them. So, but no, they're actually doing a really decent job. I'm very happy. I'm happy that they work, and I'm happy that people that need them can see what I'm saying, you know? Rap God speak fast. No, actually I believe being a speech therapist and learning more about fluency disorders, I think that I might have been growing up, and maybe still now am a little bit of what's called a clutterer. It's a fluency disorder related to stuttering. You know, people that stutter have trouble getting their words out. They'll have pauses and blocks. They'll have elongations like that, or they'll repeat a part of a word in the beginning. It's hard for them to do that. Clutterers, however, actually have a really high rate of speech, and they'll drop out syllables and phonemes from words in order to, when they speak, and they speak at a very fast rate, and it can cause a lot of problems with intelligibility or the ability to be understood by others. And that happened to me a lot when I was growing up. People didn't always understand what I was saying, and I had to slow down and repeat myself a lot. And I think that might have been happening to me, and it just kind of went undiagnosed. So I think there might still be some remnants of that today. I've made conscious effort over years to slow down when I speak and enunciate more and speak at a louder volume and all that stuff. And I think that's definitely helping. But I think that might have been something I dealt with growing up, and I wouldn't have known that. Is this web captioner? Yeah, Melko, it is. Sure is. What, am I a brain guy? I know so much. I definitely have studied the brain quite a bit. I love it. I don't have a doctorate or any sort of advanced degree in it. I have a bachelor's in psychology and some graduate level work in neuroscience. But that's about it. I don't have anything else. But other than that, I'm a hobbyist. I wish that I had the ability to go into something in neuroscience, but I just, like, where I lived and where I grew up and the financial means that I had, like, it simply wasn't in the cards. So it's unfortunate. Which part of your brain dabs on the haters? I believe that would go under control and inhibition right there. You're trying to control the haters and inhibit them from hating, so you dab on them, right? And the dabbing part's going to come from parts we'll talk about later. Controlling movement. What happens if you spill spaghetti on your brain? A lot of stuff, man. Your brain eats it up and it's delicious. Heard it said that a lot of people who mumble are perceived as lazy all the time. And because of it are actually like that. Yeah, just trying to process more speaking than their mouth's output rate. So yeah, something like that. It's more of a neurological thing. It's something else. It's not so much that they're trying to speak too fast their words are coming so fast their mouths can't handle it. It's more that I can't explain. It's a neurological based thing, and it's more of a rate of speech and your muscles moving too fast than it is they just want to speak that fast. It's not so much that. A little different. Just like stuttering isn't people wanting to speak too fast and them tripping over their words. It's more they know exactly what they want to say and they can enunciate it. It's just in certain situations their speech mechanism gets kind of stuck sometimes, and that's what happens, you know? It's not a thing that they're speaking too fast and they need to slow down. Also, those are things you should never say to a person that stutters or clutters or has fluency disorders. Slow down, stop, start over, try again, just think about what you want to say. No, those have been shown in research to not help a person that's stuttering or things like that. So, yeah, no. Let's see. I don't know that one. Wish you had a fourth neuron to keep Larry from getting lonely. What's up, Ninja? Good to see you, man. You'll never guess who's here, Ninja. Brains don't have mouth holes. Fun fact, it's true they don't. No, they don't. Your brains don't have many holes at all, actually. They have a couple, but not too many. Also, quest time for whoever's ready. I love that quote. I don't like pizza, said nobody. Anyways, we have dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, theory of mind. We have the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, or, oh gosh, now I forgot. Working memory and selective attention. We have the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, which is control and inhibition, which leaves us with the ventromedial prefrontal cortex right here and right here, which we'll talk about in just a second. Is it true that smooth brain equals dumb ruffle brain equals smart? Not necessarily. They were saying that part of Einstein's brain, and I don't know how they would know this, but part of Einstein's brain was smoother. I don't know how they would know that, but I don't know. There's been tell of people that have some smoother brains their brain works differently. Not necessarily smarter, because we don't even really know what makes a person smart right now and how that, like, what correlates to intelligence really, how to even measure intelligence accurately. Because standardized intelligence tests, or cognitive batteries as they're called nowadays, they measure certain skills, sure, but like they don't measure the whole of intelligence. They really don't. Like there's things that like people will bomb out on cognitive batteries, but they're like brilliant in other areas, and like clearly that has something to do with intelligence, right? Like it doesn't take into account emotional intelligence, reading people, social skills, doesn't take into account leadership ability, doesn't take into account a lot of different things. And there's so much to intelligence, different types of intelligences. There's no unifying way to say like someone's smarter than someone else. It's I don't know, it's hard to say, you know. Anyways, I see that y'all took out Sammy's snowshoe, which means that this little fat boy's getting a treat right here. Y'all get some kitty cam. He's such a good chill boy tonight. Thank you guys for donating yet again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest kitty on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. Y'all love it. It's a win-win-win. Oh, good boy. He's got the most adorable little heart nose on Twitch. There it is. Back to it. The real ninja? I know, right? I get that all the time. No, our friend Orange Ninja. Who's here? Well, just look at the list, dog. You'll see him. Where are we at? Where are we at? And catch up on chat here. Maybe one of the Mandela effects where you just hear it like and like it. Yeah, it could be something like that. Yeah. Gemini said when Einstein died, his brain was donated to science and was carefully scanned and documented. Okay, that's how they know. Got it. Cat's a pro streamer. Yeah, he's actually the streamer, and he just controls me, and I say what he's thinking. Is how it is. So, is he wicked smart? Hey, peace out, Master Player. Thanks for coming by. I hope to see you again, and hope you learned something. That's all I ever want. Kava says your IQ number is like your age. It's like another box that you can stick you in. Yeah, especially in schools, where they use those cognitive batteries to determine whether or not a person needs special education services. It really is like that. So it's a way to quantify and qualify people for things. Not necessarily representative of anything, because like, I don't know, a lot of stuff. But it's the best we got, you know? I'm not trying to say like, they're dumb, we shouldn't use them. I mean, we should. It's the best we have, you know? I mean, I mean, if I have like a shovel that's dull, you know, like it doesn't get into the earth very well, I'm not going to say, I shouldn't use this. If it's the only thing I got, then I'm going to use it. You know, it's better than using my hands. You know, so like the ways we have to measure intelligence now aren't the best. They could be better. We're getting there, but they're definitely better than nothing, you know? Apparently, his brain was super extra wrinkled. Okay. I was hearing something else about a smooth brain somewhere. His brain had extra wrinkles, which makes sense that he would probably have more gray matter and the ability to make more connections. The ability to, yeah, have possibly increased cognitive abilities, you know? I'm not sure if they ever did like a cognitive assessment on Einstein or not, and how that would translate to today, but I mean, given his work in science, he's obviously a very brilliant person, Also, I mean, in elementary school, he flunked out. Like, he was never a very good student there, you know? So, I mean, that says a lot, too. But then again, like a lot of geniuses and a lot of forward thinkers, visionaries, like, didn't do awesome in school. Didn't care to do well in school. Could have been a lot of things, you know? Parietal lobes are significantly bigger than average. Ah, interesting. Interesting. The flunking out thing is a myth? Okay. Got it. I don't know. I study brains. I don't study Einstein. Boxes aren't cool because they're squares, and I'm not a square. Lame-oo. Got him, Elagaz. Am I saying your name right? Is it Elagaz? Elogaz? How do you say that, man? I never would have thought that Nikola Tesla would start an electric car company while Einstein's making light bulbs. Right. Amazing. Got him. Interesting. Hadn't thought about that. Anyways, that leaves with the last section of the prefrontal cortex, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. This is where emotional intelligence and regulation's at, right? Our ability to kind of read other people's emotions, show empathy, things like that, right here. Right here, and also it goes underneath as well. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex is here, and also it goes up here. All the way down to the bottom, all the way underneath. I can't really show you, but it goes back underneath the brain a little bit too. And this area, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this area is functionally different. There's a lot less activation here in people with psychopathy. You know, one of the hallmark traits of psychopathy is just a complete lack of empathy for other people, right? Just like do not care what happened to other people. So yeah, often very narcissistic, they'll use other people for their own ends. They are totally 100% out for themselves. This area is definitely affected with people, in people that have psychopathy or psychopaths, right? So, why Gemini want to let people know? What? Why does Geminis want to let people know they Gemini must be a Gemini thing? I don't know. I don't know if he actually is or not. That's an interesting question. Again, am I reading this or do I know this? Both. I know this, and I also wrote myself notes so that I can guide what I'm saying. The part about me associating this to disorders, I know that. That's stuff I've read before. I love it. But yeah, that's me. It says right there. It says what? I'm lost. But yeah, I wrote myself some notes, but a lot of this stuff, a lot of the associations I'm making, that's all me. That's the stuff that I know. So anyways, so that's the prefrontal cortex. That gives us a lot of our higher order thinking. A lot of our social skills is here, our attentional abilities, things like that, all right there. And back to this view. So that's the prefrontal cortex is really like right about here. Does this show that? No, not so much. Forget that noise. Right here. Oh, I showed the picture, so I gotta give them credits. This one was made by Bruce Blouse. Right there. And it's available on Wikipedia. There's the link right there, but whoop, you can't actually see it. There it is. But hats off to him for making that picture. It's up on Wikipedia. There it is. I'm talking about it. My boy Bruce Blouse. There he is. It's good people. Better artist than I am. So I appreciate him doing that. Hey, Windfall, thanks for hooking him up with some treats there. Hey, and also Kyle, thanks for trying to give him some treats. You guys both got what? It canceled you guys, Bada? Stop it. Let him hook him up. Try again, Kyle. You gave 400 to somebody that doesn't exist, dog. What? One moment. There we go. Here's your 400 back, Kyle. Anyways, can't handle it. Too much BDNF flowing around. By the way, is our new channel currency. It's BDNF now instead of treats. Whenever Bruce gets a lot of flack for wearing blouses, I don't know. I like to think that he has a blouse line named after him, you know, specific style of blouse called a Bruce blouse. That's what I'm going for. You got a Windfall. There it is. Tax, you're looking for exclamation point list, man, not commands. So there's our prefrontal cortices right here. I say cortices instead of cortex because, as I said earlier, they're mirrored on both halves of our brain. What's on one side of the brain is also on the other side of the brain. I won't say that there's nothing, but there's very, very, very little, if anything, that is on one side of the brain and not on the others. I know that for most people, it's not always the case, but the language center here, Broca's area, and back here, Wernicke's area, for speaking and understanding speech, those typically are lateralized. They're on one side of a person's brain, usually on the left hemisphere. For some people, it's on the right hemisphere instead, and some people, it's actually a little bit bilateral. Everybody's a little bit different, but for the most part, most of the time, you have a left hemisphere stroke, you're going to be damaging your language centers probably, because your language centers tend to be on the left, on your left hemisphere, but it's not always that way. Kyle's got a lot of BDNF. Boom, there it is. But so yeah, this is the prefrontal cortices right here. The rest of this is still frontal lobe, but it does other stuff. Mainly initiating movement. That's what it is. Initiation of movement is basically the rest of this frontal lobe, including here Broca's area, which is initiating speech, right? A specific part of our brain here, this is called the primary motor cortex right here. This is what's activated first, or one of the first parts is activated when we go to produce some sort of movement. Why this part is important, why this specific gyrus right here is important, is because this is the primary motor cortex. This right here is the primary, what we call somatosensory cortex in the parietal lobe. And they kind of mirror each other, right? So the parietal lobe, well, I'm not going to talk about that yet, but the primary motor cortex and the primary somatosensory cortex, each bit of each of these cortexes is mapped to a certain part of our body, right? So you might say like this part here is for our hands. This part here is for our trunk, our torso. This part here is for our legs, something like that. It's divided up a bit more than that. But the same part in the parietal lobe is going to be mapped the same way. So like this would be for the sensation of the hands, not movement, but sensation of the hands. This could be for sensation of the trunk, the torso. This could be for sensation of the legs right here. And they have a kind of a one-to-one correspondence. They're mapped right next to each other. Because when you go to initiate a movement, the first thing is activated is the appropriate part of the primary motor cortex, and then the primary part of the somatosensory cortex is also activated, so that we can feel that body part while we're moving it, right? If you could move something but not feel it, you would have trouble controlling that movement, and also vice versa. If you couldn't move, or if you can't really feel something, it's harder to move it accurately, you know? We catch up on chat here a little bit. If a Bruce blouse could wear blouses, how many Bruce blouses would it wear? 70 bajillion, I think. I think so. I think that picture is right. The brain isn't green and blue. Someone else got to that joke first, Elagaz. Studies show strokes are bad for the brain indeed. They indeed do show that, yes. 10 out of 10 doctors agree. It is reticular, but I mean, hey, you asked. Secondary got him. But yeah, primary motor strip, secondary or primary somatosensory cortex, those mirror each other, and they are responsible for part of what's responsible for moving and controlling our movements while we move them, right? So that if you guys search for this word, I'm not going to bring it up on stream because there's a little bit of nudity, but if you search for this word, you'll bring up a weird looking little dude, right? He's not like a real thing, of course. Obviously, once you see it, you'll know it's not real, but it's a physical kind of representation of the way that the primary motor strip and the primary motor cortex and the primary somatosensory cortex are mapped. according to body size. So you'll see like there's a disproportionately large part of these cortexes are mapped to our hands, because our hands are used for a lot of very fine movement and fine manipulation and stuff like that. They're very sensitive, right? So like if you your fingers are a lot more sensitive to things, because we use those to manipulate objects, we use those to feel things, we use those to kind of like feel around in the dark for things. They have to be very sensitive and able to move very finely, right? So as a disproportionately large amount of this cortex, each one of these cortices maps to our hands. Less so for our arms, much less for our trunk, very little for our trunk. You kind of just need to, especially for your back, there's not much of anything, there's hardly anything mapped for your back. Really all you need to feel with your back, or be able to do very gross movements with your back, and all you need to feel on your back is if something touches it, so you can turn around and see what it is. That's about all you need there. So not much of these cortices is mapped to your back. There's a decent amount for your legs and your feet and stuff like that. Your genitals are also mapped there, of course. Your face and your tongue and your lips, very sensitive parts as well. So a lot of these cortices are mapped to those as well. But there's a disproportionate amount of each, depending on the sensitivity of your body part. A lot of this, or more of these cortices, are mapped to that specific body part, right? Right, Elegaz? It's an interesting picture. And the homunculus, if you go look it up, it's just a physical representation of how these two cortices are mapped to your body parts. That's all. That's what happens if you reach 150 years old. I don't think so. Spine's important. Yeah, the spine's important for sure, but you don't need to feel it. You don't need to move it a lot. You don't need to you can't do this kind of stuff with it. You don't need to feel a lot of it. You kind of just need to know if it hurts and if something's touching it. You're good. But here you need to worry about textures and rough and soft. You need to know temperature with this. Your hands are a lot more important for touching things. The spine has feelings where it's hurt. Stop. Kava says, I'm seriously glad I can't feel my spine in the way I feel you feel most nights. You imagine it would hurt a lot. Exactly. Yeah, there's that too, you know? You kind of get dull aches in your back a lot of the times, but if you have a tiny cut on your finger, you can't stop thinking about it, right? It hurts a lot. It kind of hurts a lot more. Not that back pain isn't painful. It sucks, but you know, a lot more, maybe more pain in your hands and stuff like that. In your face too. Oh, geez. Anyways, that's the primary motor cortex and the primary somatosensory cortex. That's kind of how those work to give us movement and sensation, right? Also, these two cortices, you can see here, back in this view of the brain, they're going to come up the side of our brain here, and they also travel down into the center, down to this structure, what's called the corpus callosum. I'll talk about that one later. But so the cortex doesn't just stop here, it actually travels all the way down in here too. So there's a lot more than it looks like. And again, every part of our body is mapped to that somewhere. Face TP, face, what? Wait, what? Yeah, it is, Ninja. That's him, dude. Red, that's what I was trying to talk about earlier. I was saying, look at the freaking user list, dude. He's in there. He's back. He's back alive and well. He's doing well. He's here. Had to take some him time. That's okay. We're just glad to see him back. Freaking love the guy, dude. He's here. Right? I was trying to figure out what you were typing there, but whoop, it's just Orange Ninja got so excited that Redtacular's back he messed up his typing. Doesn't happen very often. It's a momentous occasion for him. Just saying. Your spine speaks to you, tells you most days it feels like a big rib. Freaking Red, I missed you, man. The jokes haven't been the memes haven't been as spicy without you, man. Anyways, so primary motor strip is for moving. Primary somatosensory cortex is for feeling those body parts that are moving. And those kind of work together to help us control our movements, feel our body in space, things like that. The rest of the parietal lobe is mainly for association. I'll talk about the rest of this when we talk about the occipital lobe and the temporal lobe. Let's see, the occipital lobe Oh yeah, wait. I guess I will talk about this now. The parietal lobe is also kind of what gives us what some people call the sixth sense, and I don't think that that's true. It's not a thing at all. We don't have a sixth sense. Some people call it the sixth sense, but really it's just an extension of us being able of our sense of touch, right? But there's a sense that we have, a sense of our body in space. It's called proprioception, right? So if you're sitting at a computer or laying down or whatever you're doing right now, if you were to just think about where your foot is, or feel your foot, not physically, don't go touch it, but just like feel where your foot is. You can do that. You can locate it right away, right? But you don't always have to do that, but your parietal lobe is always helping you kind of keep an eye on where your body is in space. It's important to know because you can bump into stuff otherwise if you're not sure, things like that. But if you just think about a part of your body right now, you can kind of get a little echo back from it. And, yep, I'm here, and you can feel where it is, right? If you're drunk, your parietal lobe, your whole brain is kind of jacked up, especially your frontal lobes. Yeah. Redtacular noticed his foot's gone. Oh, dang, dog. Rip foot indeed. That's what I thought. Ninja was like, did he not notice? Eligaz said, I heard if you bump the back of your head, your eyes go dark. It can for a second, and that's for a good reason. We'll talk about that in a moment. Also, quest time for whoever's ready. But yeah, our proprioception, that is a sense of our body in space, right? It helps us keep track of where our body parts are. We don't normally have to attend to it. It's usually a subconscious process, but if we need to think about it, we know, right? So if something suddenly brushes our leg, we look down, we're looking right at our leg. We know where it is, right? If you didn't know where your body was in space at all time, if something touched your arm, you might have trouble locating your arm and looking at it, and that takes up valuable time. If something's on you, you need to brush off of you, or you're being attacked by something or whatnot, it's just it's kind of important for our brain to be able to keep track of where our body is at all times. Not something we normally have to think about, like I said, but a very important process. Cats have whiskers, and if they don't fall over, I'm sorry, what? If they don't, they fall over? Oh, no, not so much. That's not true. The whiskers don't give them a sense of balance. Whiskers are there. One thing I do know about the whiskers is they're always the width of their body, and they'll use that to kind of test and see if something is okay to go into or not. If you might see a cat go up and stick its face into a hole or an opening of some sort like that, and if their whiskers touch the sides, then they won't go in because there's a possibility they'll get stuck, right? Tails for balance. Their tail definitely helps them with that. Fight or flight, says Redtacular. Not sure. You got bean boozled? Yeah, it's okay. No worries, man. That's why we're here, learning the real facts. Unless it's about Einstein, because I apparently don't know those. Anyways, I see you guys took out Django Beanto, which means little fat boy. Oh my gosh, he actually got Django. He actually said the word Django. Yeah, you guys took out Django Beanto, which means little fat boy. Get street. Yeah, I'll get some kitty cam. Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest kitty on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. Y'all love it. It's a win-win-win. Oh, good boy. When it comes to facts about Einstein, Ina Beta is not wicked smart. Nope, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Anyways, that leads us to the occipital lobe, right? So frontal lobe gives us all of our higher functioning and motor planning. Parietal lobe lets us feel, is basically for tactile sensation, and also some association, which we'll talk about in a bit. The occipital lobe. This is all visual. This is what lets us see things, colors, movement, light and dark, things like that. All the we talked about the eyes here on stream before. We'll talk about them more in depth in the future. We talked about the all the visual information coming in from our retinas gets sent back through the brain, goes to the occipital lobe for processing and making sense of what we're seeing, right? So yeah, that's pretty much all the occipital lobe does. It lets us see. That's what it does. It lets us see and make sense of what we're seeing, right? So that's one of the reasons why, if not the only reason why, somebody who has what's called cortical blindness, there's nothing wrong with their eyes. If they have cortical blindness, like there's something wrong with the occipital lobe, they can't see. They're not gonna see. The occipital lobe's been destroyed or something like that. They're not seeing. their eyes work just fine. Like there's nothing wrong with their retinas. There's nothing wrong with the optic nerve going from the retinas to the occipital lobe. They have cortical blindness. There was damage to the occipital lobe. They can't see. They just can't do it anymore. But if they have something like, if they were blind at birth, they had a retina, something wrong with their eyes. They had like a cataracts or like some sort of retinopathy or something like that. And later, their vision is restored, right? Later in life, they're made able to see, but they grew up being blind and, you know, feeling their way around and things like that, relying more on sound and touch to make sense of objects and know where they are in space, things like that. But they have their eyes fixed later. You might have heard of this before, but people that have their sight restored later in life, after being blind for most of their life, they can't make sense of what they see, you know? They can see, but like they don't know what they're looking at, right? It's essentially like they're still blind, you know? And that's because while they were blind, their occipital lobe worked fine, but it wasn't being used for vision. So the parietal lobe and the temporal lobe were used for feeling and for hearing, kind of took over these parts of the occipital lobe, and now they're being used for these things, for sight, for touch, and for hearing instead, and not for vision. So a person, I remember reading about this in one of the famous neurologists, Oliver Sacks. His name is Oliver Sacks. He wrote a book where he worked with a patient that had he had blindness and then got his vision fixed later in life after being after adjusting to being blind. It's called retro blindness. After he had his sight restored, he couldn't tell what he was looking at. Like he could look at, he put a ball in front of him, like, what is that? He's like, I don't know. Like he just doesn't know what it is because he hasn't seen it before, you know? But if he went up and touched it, he's like, oh, it's a ball. Or like he saw like a statue of a gorilla and like looked at it like, I don't know what that is, but like walk up and like touch it. Oh, it's a gorilla. Like they have to go touch it in order to understand what it is, you know? So yeah, that's why that works that way, because if this area isn't there to make sense of what you're seeing, you know, information can get there, visual information can get there, but if this area, the occipital lobe, isn't there to make sense of what you're seeing, you can't identify the objects, you know? You can't identify what you're seeing, you can't make use of it. It just doesn't do anything for you. Let me catch up on chat a little bit. Elga said, you want to know who Wicked Smart, that one guy from one time period who did that one historical thing? Very important. Who thought first? Wow, these are very interesting things. Watch the language. I want to talk about thoughts here. The world is upside down. Your brain flips the right side up. Oh yeah. It's not so much the world is upside down, but what you're talking about is actually the way images enter our eyes. They're actually bounced off of things in the environment. Photons are bounced off things in the environment and they enter our eyes. So just the way that light bounces off things, what we're seeing up here is actually bounced to the bottom of our retina, and what we're seeing on the bottom of our field of view is actually bounced to the top of our retina. So things are actually projected onto our retina upside down, and that's part of what the occipital lobe does, is it takes that image and flips it right side up so that we can actually, you know, see the world correctly. But yeah, if you like map where the light's actually hitting your retina, things are projected upside down for sure. And the things on the outside of our field of vision out here actually hit the inside of our retina, and the things on the inside field of our vision actually hit the outside of our retina as well. So your brain has to do that kind of correction to flip things right side up for us. What about the eyes on your brain? That's a problem you should go to the doctor for. Yeah. Right, says, which part of my brain will make me forget about ugly cats? Specifically the cat from that one video where he's like, it looks like grandma. I haven't seen that one. Literally the ugliest cat. I haven't seen that one. I'll have to go look that up sometime. What part of your brain will make you forget about that? Brain damage would make you forget about that. Because your memories are all stored in the cortex, so you'd have to figure out where that memory is stored in your cortex and take that part out, boom, you can't remember it anymore. And then hopefully you never see it again. Helga said, I heard the preoccipital notch is what inspired Apple to give the notch on the iPhone X. I don't know. I would think that, I have no idea. It might be that. Couldn't say. How can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real? Said Jaden Smith. Got him. One of the great philosophers of our time. Hello guys, are gonna fit right in here, man. Anyway, so that's the occipital lobe. That's all for vision. And they, like I said, there's two different methods for blindness. Retro blindness occurs when your eyes work just fine, or your eyes don't work, and your occipital lobe has been fine your whole life, but you just never really saw things before, and you didn't have your whole lifetime to make those associations, right? You get what's called retro blindness, and your eyes work just fine. You can see, but you can't make sense of the information that you're seeing. It doesn't mean anything to you, right? Right, Red is here, Bloodborne boss. We actually did play through Bloodborne recently, Redtacular. Sony saw fit to release Bloodborne on PS Now for the PC, so I actually finally freaking got to play it. And it was dope. It was dope. The temporal lobe. That's the last part. There's one, well, two senses, I guess, but one major sense that we haven't talked about yet. Hearing. Auditory information is decoded in the temporal lobe, for sure. Of course, it goes to the thalamus first and then back out of the temporal lobe for processing. But yeah, our sense of hearing, mainly right here in the temporal lobe, also helps. The temporal lobe does a lot of different things besides just let us hear. It also helps us make sense of things, gives us meaning for things like that, works with the occipital lobe and the parietal lobe to make this this center here and or this area here and kind of like the center of the parietal lobe, the end of the temporal lobe, stuff like that. This is where one Wernicke's area is, where we helps us understand language, maintain or understand spoken language, stay on topic, things like that, understand written language as well, but also helps us understand and associate like what things are. This is where like a lot of vocabulary is done, where number recognition and math skills and stuff would be. Like these three areas kind of work together to help us see and understand and hear and understand and just basically make sense of all the stuff that we're experiencing in the world right here. The temporal lobe plays a major part of that as well. And then we can't see them here. Oh yeah, we can on this view. That's why I did this view. Go Bruce Blouse. Shout out to Bruce Blouse. The brain, or some call it cosm. Love it, Red. Spoiler alert, in the game RDR2, Red Dead 2, you are a cowboy. A rootin' tootin' cowboy shooting too. It's true you are. You know they have the brain of Walt Disney? No, they don't. Stop it. So yeah, here's another view of the brain. Talked about the frontal lobes. There's the precentral, they call it the precentral gyrus, or it's also the premotor strip, or the primary motor strip. Here's the postcentral gyrus, or the somatosensory cortex, like we talked about. There's a central sulcus. Here's the lateral sulcus. I didn't use this picture to illustrate those because they're just not as well defined here. But this one does have other parts of the brain we didn't talk about, namely the cerebellum and the brainstem. We talked about the brainstem a little bit yesterday, but the cerebellum primarily is used to help us coordinate our movements, right? If anybody's ever heard of the disorder called ataxia, that's a disorder that affects mainly the cerebellum, or damage to the cerebellum causes ataxia. And that's just a gross difficulty with coordinating your movements. You might have trouble walking, you might have like a stumbling gait, you might reach for something and like overshoot it or undershoot, like you have trouble like guiding your hand to reach out and grab something. Yeah, damage to the cerebellum will do that. Also in the cerebellum, this is the site where, well, a lot of things, not everything, but the cerebellum and the brainstem, this is where something called what's called decussation takes place. So when things are, when projections, which we didn't really talk about too much, wasn't I going to talk about projections today? I can't remember. I'll talk about projections. I talked about projections a little bit yesterday. But there's three different types of fibers in our brain, right? Which are just basically groups of neurons projecting to different parts of our brain, right? So there's association fibers, which go from one part of a hemisphere to another part of the same hemisphere. A main association fiber network is called the arcuate fasciculus. It'll connect Broca's area to Wernicke's area. It helps us, that works together to help us both speak and understand what we're saying. That gets damaged, very, very interesting things happen. So yeah, that's association fibers. We saw here, I talked about this part of the brain right here called the corpus callosum. This is a big, thick band of, it's a thick boy, of neuronal tissue. These are all what are called connection fibers, and they connect one half of our brain to the other half of our brain so that the hemispheres can communicate with one another. Sometimes in people that have pretty severe epilepsy, and they'll decide the best thing to do is go in and cut the corpus callosum so that the two hemispheres can no longer communicate with one another. And you end up with some pretty interesting abilities and also pretty interesting deficits after that. Thick brain indeed, Redtacular. It's a thick boy. But yeah, you end up with some interesting deficits and interesting abilities after that as well. If you can like Google a YouTube video of split brain patients and see kind of some of the challenges that they face, and also just some interesting things that they can do. Like they become totally ambidextrous, like they can just draw stuff with both hands and write with both hands. I'm not sure if they can write with both hands. They can definitely like draw different shapes. They can draw two different shapes with both hands and like completely simultaneously, whereas we would have to like kind of draw one and then the other. We couldn't do that, but they have no problem with it. If you show like a picture, if like you have a divider on their face right here, and you show a picture in this eye, then ask them to draw it with this hand, they can do it, but they can't draw it with the other hand because the other half of the brain can't tell what that is. You know, it's really interesting stuff. I think that's how it works, or maybe it's the other way around. But like if they see something with one eye, they'll be able to draw it with one hand, but not draw it with the other hand because the other half of the brain didn't get that information. So really interesting stuff that happens. But yeah, it's the corpus callosum that helps us. That's what lets both halves of our brain communicate. And there's also projection fibers, which go from our brain and out to the rest of the body, right? So a lot of those fibers that project outside of our central, or outside of our central, not outside of our body. What am I talking about? Sorry, outside of the brain. We have no fibers that project outside of our body besides maybe beard hairs. But the projection fibers that go from the brain and out through the spinal cord and out to the rest of your body, they'll do what's called decussate somewhere in the brainstem usually. And what that is they'll go from the half of the brain that they started on, and they'll cross over to the other side of the brain, or the other side. They'll cross over to the other side of the central nervous system out to the body. So that's why maybe you know, maybe you don't, but the left half of our brain controls the right half of our body, and the right half of our brain controls the left half of our body. Right? You may have heard that before. That's true. It does. People with left hemisphere strokes that have those language difficulties will often also have right-handed or right-sided hemiparesis, and it's because the left half of the brain's damaged. The fibers projecting out to the body decussate or cross here in the brainstem and go to the right-handed side of right half of the body, and they can't. They're weakened now. So that's where that's another site, or that's where that happens, is in the cerebellum and the brainstem. So the cerebellum again is for mainly for coordination of our movements, and the brainstem is for, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but it's for a lot of those basic life support functions that you don't really have to think about, right? Breathing is pretty much an automatic function. We can stop it, we can hold our breath for a while, but for the most part we don't have to think about breathing throughout the day. Blinking your eyes and stuff like that, kind of an automatic thing. You don't have to worry about that. Heartbeat, never have to think about that. Can't even control it really. You might say your heart's out of control. Vomiting is another one that takes place here is started here in the brainstem. All those involuntary functions take place in the brainstem. I'm now manually breathing. No, I'm not. I wasn't for a bit. You might think about it, but you don't have to actually like put effort into thinking about it. Ninja shared with us yesterday a very interesting disorder of the brainstem where your breathing is no longer automatic and you have trouble breathing for the rest of your life. Mainly when you're sleeping, I'm guessing, because when you're awake you can kind of focus on it a bit more, but certain damage to the brainstem can make it so that breathing is no longer automatic and no longer taken over by the brainstem, and makes living very difficult after that, for sure. I can only imagine what that would be like. I can imagine it would suck very badly if I had to guess. So yeah, what's this? Oh, that was another picture. That was another one. That's another one from our boy Bruce Blouse. I didn't use this one much, but this shows the different association areas. Somatic association area here. All three, the association area, the auditory association area, all those areas are here. As I said, there's Wernicke's area for us to understand speech right here, and then Broca's area for us to produce speech right here. And you can't see it, but inside the brain a little deeper, there's the arcuate fasciculus, that band of association fibers that connects these two areas to help us both speak and understand what we're saying at the same time, right? I freaking love it. Bruce ain't taking a single day off, all day, every day, drawing brains. He can draw me some brains, cause I suck at it, and I want some brain art, dog. Anybody's good at brain art, feel free to drop it in the Discord. I would love to see some, like, some community-made brain art, because I can't freaking do any. I will never be... Tomorrow I'm going to draw a brain. It's going to be very, very simple. But I'm going to draw a brain on a picture of my own head, actually, to talk about anatomy terms. But yeah, got to get my boy Bruce in there. I do. I need to get in contact with this guy and have him make some brains, because I'm not doing it. I can't art, so I'm never going to be able to art because I'm not going to put the time in to learn it. So it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. That's what it's going to be like. Anyways, that is my spiel, all about the 4 lobes of the brain and also about the brainstem and the cerebellum. That's it. That, in a nutshell, is what our the different parts of our cortex do. Now, there's specific parts of our cortex that do specific things more specifically. You know, there's the we talked about the different functions of the frontal lobe and all that, but then we also talked about there's the precentral primary motor cortex, which initiates our movement, primary somatosensory cortex. Here in the temporal lobe, there's something called the fusiform gyrus. It's around here. It's one of these gyruses, or remember, a gyrus is a part of the brain sticking up. The fusiform gyrus here lets us specifically not understand, but comprehend, like lets us see and recognize faces, right? Faces of people. Like when you look at a face and recognize it as a human face, that part of your brain's being activated. So damage to that actually causes a very specific and interesting disorder called Capgras syndrome, where a person doesn't recognize people the way that they should. They can recognize that there's people, but like familiar people, they'll say is like, you're not really you, you're actually somebody else. You're an imposter of the person, right? You're not actually my wife. You're somebody that they sent in. You're not actually her. You're somebody else. You're an imposter, right? So, yeah, that's interesting. Usually damage to that area will cause that, I believe. And but like, if for instance, if that same person that saw their wife and didn't believe it was her, if his wife left the room and went and called him on the phone, he'd be like, oh my gosh, hey, you wouldn't believe it. Like, so it's so good to hear your voice. I'm glad to hear from you. You wouldn't believe it. They just had somebody in here that looked like you. I can't believe it. It's crazy, you know. So but yeah, the specific areas of the brain do specific different things. I don't have all the different areas, what would be called Brodmann's areas. I don't have those all memorized. But those are some that I know. And yeah, those are the lobes in a nutshell. That's how they work. That's what they do. Let's catch up on chat here real quick. I'm somebody else. Nobody told me. I know, right? It's pretty crazy. No one ever got around to telling you, man. Sorry. Yeah, Ninja, I have thought about them. I haven't explained it though, did I? I didn't explain it. Tomorrow I will do so. Tomorrow when there are many people here, I meant to make a thing for Bada to say about it. But yeah, I have thought about those. I did think about that. I didn't put it into practice. Maybe. I'm gonna use them differently than most people do. Most people use them. All right, I see you guys took out Muse Tavish though, which means Little Fat Boy's getting a treat. Y'all get some kitty cam. Thank you guys for questing yet again for Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund. Dedicated to keeping him the fattest kitty on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. Y'all love it. It's a win-win-win. And I'm going to leave you guys with some extra kitty cam for just a moment, while I switch it on over to some Darkest Dungeon.